Molar heat. Molar heat is the amount of heat needed to do something for 1 mole of the substance. So molar heat of vaporization is the amount of heat needed to vaporize 1 mole. It's the amount of energy. Heat is just energy, so it's the amount of energy needed to vaporize 1 mole. What does vaporize mean? Vaporize means going from a liquid to a gas. So it's the energy needed to go from a liquid to a gas for 1 mole of a liquid at the boiling point. Molar heat of fusion. The word fusion here does not mean nuclear chemistry. We're not combining nucleuses or nuclei. Instead, the word fusion here means to melt. So this is one that confuses a lot of people because it's a different word. It's not heat of melting, it's heat of fusion. It's the energy needed to melt 1 mole of a solid at its melting point. So what does melt mean? Melt means to go from a solid to a liquid. So molar heat of fusion is the amount of heat or the amount of energy needed to melt 1 mole. Needed to go from a solid to a liquid of 1 mole. Now a heating or a cooling curve allows us to see this happen on a graph. Heating would mean that we're starting at a low temperature and going to a higher temperature. So a cooling curve would be the same thing, except we would start at a high temperature and work our way to a colder temperature. There are 3 phases and there are 3 diagonals on this graph. So at the lower temperature would be our solid phase. The temperature in the middle would represent our liquid phase, and the temperature at the top would represent our gas phase. So what do you call it when you go from a solid to a liquid? Well, solid to liquid is melting. Liquid to solid is freezing. So you can actually see that these 2 phase changes happen at the same temperature. So one of the questions that they like to ask is, what is the melting point? Or what is the freezing point? Notice that there's no pressure here, so it doesn't matter what pressure we're at, but what temperature is it? So all you have to do is come across and read the line. Again, you don't draw straight lines, so make sure that you actually show this line and circle what your answer would be. So let's go with 8 degrees Celsius. So there is some give and take, but you definitely cannot say above 10 or below 0 degrees Celsius. What do you call it when you go from a liquid to a gas? Well, that's called boiling. What do you call it when you go from gas to liquid? Well, that's called condensation. Notice that those 2 phase changes happen at the same temperature. So if the question said, what is the boiling point of the substance? Or what is the condensation point of the substance? All we would have to do is take our line, go straight across, and read the temperature. It's just below 70, so let's say 68 degrees Celsius. So a cooling curve, you have the exact same thing happening. It's just the gas is what you start with, then you would condense, then you would be a liquid, then you would freeze, and then you would be a solid. So just remember, the bottom is a solid, the top is the gas, and in between is the liquid. And then if you just know your phase changes, you know how to get your temperature.